Eli, tell me something fun or interesting about yourself.
Well, the fun thing you might not know by looking at me is that I've been teaching aerobics for about 25 years. That's something fun that I still like to do after all this time of doing it.
For 25 years, how did you get started in it?
But I went to the gym to lose some weight. I started off in the back of the room. I went to the first class and I said, fuck this shit. And I walked right out after 15 minutes. Went back the
It
next
was
time.
that bad? What?
I couldn't get it. It was a step class. I couldn't get it. And I kept walking out of the class, and then I stayed longer and longer and longer. And then I went from the back of the room to the front of the room. And one day, our teacher said she was going away for 6 weeks, and Sabrina was going to be taking over. Sabrina comes in. She's a 6-foot African-American woman, about 250 pounds. I'm like, really? She's going to teach us? And she kicked our asses, only to find out she was a trainer for the Army. And I thought, if she can teach, I can teach. And then I went and got certified, but she was the motivation. She was amazing. And I've never, ever
Right
seen her.
on.
I've never seen her since. I don't know her, but boy, did I remember her. And here we are all these years later.
Amazing. Just an inspiration from the start. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's interesting how we never know who will inspire us and how. And they may never know.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a really interesting concept, just to think about all the interactions you have in life. And even, there's in-person interactions, there's digital interactions, and each of them can have this moment, this little catalyst moment that someone else takes away something massive from. And like you said, you may never know.
I went to a workout class this morning, and it was an outside class. There's about 80 people. And I was walking to the car, this guy said, hi, what's your name? Blah, blah, we're talking. He goes, oh, you're newer here. I'm like, really? You've even noticed me here? All this stuff. See, we never know.
Cool. So, what would you say is something that's recently has inspired you?
So when Black Lives Matter started to rear its ugly head again, and what I mean by that, it's just, how many years have we gone through this, and why is there no change? So when it's become more prominent today, I've really started to become very interested in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, what's really interesting, someone really asked me about it recently, said, are you new to this? And I thought for a second, I thought, yes, I am. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Years ago, I worked for an AIDS service organization. And during that time, I took a training that they had. I was the volunteer and training manager. And I took a revered training that everybody loved. And I gutted it because it wasn't inclusive of people of color, women, and children, people with AIDS and living with HIV. And I just gutted it because nobody included any of this. And so I thought, I've been working with diversity, equity, and inclusion for a long time. And when hashtag BLM came up, it's just like, it just raised so many things. And for me, it raised that, I've always, while I am not African American, I've always had discrimination against me. I've had it because I'm Jewish. I've had it because I'm an overweight guy. I've always had it because I'm a gay man. And one of the areas I feel I'm being discriminated against today is because of my age. I'm 55. And so when I put that all in combination, I really wanted to do a more holistic and more proactive approach. So for an example, I'm taking a LinkedIn learning course right now, and it's about a 22-hour course on the whole thing, DEI.
I think I've seen that pop up. There was a news section, and it said, diversity and inclusion. Is that something that, is available to anyone?
It is. And what I thought was interesting, I was like, it's LinkedIn. How good is it going to be? Surprisingly, the instructors they have, and I've taken about 7 or 8 of the courseworks right now, they've all been great. really good structures and information, and you know, the effect on diversity in the workforce, the cost of not having diversity in the workforce for business, the cost for belonging in organizations. You know, I worked in a place where they said, you know, we need people of color working here. Well, you know, you can have as many people of color and gay and old or whatever, but if they don't feel like they belong, or they're the only one there and they're just a number, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So there's just so much learning there. And, you know, I'm actually hoping to do more teaching and training on DEI, because I do think it's something, how we think of, and we all have bias. Everybody has bias that, you know, but it's the idea of how do we become cognizant of it and mindful of it, and where does it show up? Does it show up in hiring? Does it show up in how we treat people? Does it show up in belonging? So that's a long answer for that question, but it is something that's really been inspiring to me as of lately.
I love it. That's something that, just listening and thinking about that, all this is really inspiring to me as well. And I think that's part of this project here. It's to be inspired, to peer into and listen into some of the things that people are doing outside of your filter bubble. You know, you get fed these things that come in from the friends that you follow or the content you engage with. But how often do you just go out randomly and pick a random restaurant as opposed to going to Yelp and finding the best star rating? How often do you go and consume information or knowledge from someone that you've never connected with? So this is cool.
Yeah.
So what would you say is something that you've learned to do particularly well, just in your career and in life?
In my career, you know, here's the interesting thing. I've been really fortunate. And, you know, I don't toot my own horn, but I think I've been successful in all my roles. I think I learned so much in every role. And I think what I do well is you know, I had my own marketing, graphic, and web design business for years. I think I do that very well. As a coach, I think I'm a good coach. I think I'm a really good trainer. And so, you know, and I think that comes from the idea that you got to love what you do. And I actually do like what I do. You know, teaching aerobics 25 years, I still like it, right? I'm not doing it for the money. I like it. Coaching, career coaching, executive coaching, training, I still like it. I think there's always something to learn. It keeps me active. You know, I love creative stuff. I still love the creative process and working with people. But I think what I really do well, and I think it goes to my life purpose statement, and I live by this every day, and that is, I'm dedicated to helping people personally, professionally, and physically 110%. I'm in service of people every day.
When did you come up with this life purpose statement, and how did you decide to create that?
Yeah. So when I went to coaching certification, one of the exercises was how you create a life purpose statement. And the first, there's actually two. The base statement that I came up with is, I am the creative force that has and is willing to create change. That's the base statement of my life purpose, because my life has been that completely. I've created change, I've been a part of change, and I'm willing to create change and help people create change. And then the other part is the dedication is, I thought about it, and that's really what I do every day. Every single day, if I can help people with their business and coach and their personal lives and life skills and their physical skills, and help in whatever way to make change, you know, what's not to like?
I guess I do want to follow up with one question as well. When you mentioned that, you know, you have to love what you do, it sounds like you've had a diversity of experiences in many different areas. Did you pursue those paths because before you started creating those as a career, you were really passionate about that and you did love it? Or did you fall into things and you found out, oh, I actually do love doing this?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is I like to say, and a lot of people can't say this, I've had many careers to date, not jobs, careers. And, I've never job hopped. It was just sort of how these things came up. I started off in radio and TV. I've worked in service. I've worked in HIV services. I've worked in hospitals, administration. I worked in publishing and, in all sorts of different areas. And so it's just sort of how the universe has shown me and shown up throughout the years. But it's just sort of things sort of happen. I started off in broadcasting. I came to the Bay Area, and that was my last broadcast job. And then I went into hospital administration and working at a restaurant for extra money. And then I worked in hospital administration, and then I wanted to work in HIV services. And then I got hired in HIV. And at that time, I have a master's degree from NYU, and I think that's the only reason I got the job, because I did not have experience, creating trainings. It was about practical and emotional support for people with HIV. And, I just created all this stuff, and it went really well. And so that led to me, long story short, I left that job. I just needed a change. And then a friend of mine said, hey, look, we're looking for someone over here in sales. Can you sub in for a little? And I did, and I learned sales. It was in business directory advertising. The owner taught me graphic design, so then I became the production manager. And then I moved up to their chief operating officer. I left that company to become another chief operating officer for another publishing company, very similar. And then I said, after all that, the marketing and design and all that, I said, like, you know what? I can create my own one-stop shop. And I did. And I had that for 15 years. And then in 2011, I thought to myself, I'm nervous that they're not going to want to go to a 50, 60, or 70-year-old graphic web and marketing person, even though I had good business. And I had been working with a business coach. And he says, Eli, with the way you help people in their businesses and the way you help people, you should be a coach. And then I went and got certified, sold my business, and here we are.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, what is it like to be a coach?
I think, first off, I do love it. I still love it. I still love the coaching. I love the training. It's interesting. I just took on 3 new clients. And they each come with something different. And so I think it really, as a coach, you have to be sort of a magician in a way. And each one deserves their own magic. Like this one, you need to pull a rabbit out of the hat. This one, you need to pull like scarves out of your sleeve. And this one, you need to pull a penny from behind their ear. Everyone needs something different. And it's about helping people to realize things and share perspective and be objective and ask the right questions. And, I think for me, the best part of being a coach is when people make shifts in their lives, or when their businesses change, or they get new careers, new jobs, right? And so there are times it's challenging, but once they reach their goals, when you see progress or shifts in thought and perspective, then it's all worth it.
Interesting. I think that's great to know, like the certain times in a person's life when coaching might be useful. And
I think look, in good times and bad times, I've always had a coach over the last 15 years. And it's different than therapy. This is not therapy. It's about changing the story, how to decipher what the story is, what the truth is, what's fallacy, and how to move forward. And, it's funny because I think everybody should have a coach. I was talking to somebody recently. He has about 5 coaches. He has a fitness coach.
Wow.
He has a business coach. He has a strategy coach. He's a CEO. He has a strategy coach for his company. I was like, oh my God, you're paying all these people. I'm like, good for him. But he knows they each bring something to the table that helps support him and his company.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And I hear goals, having a specific goal and the focus is an essential thing for people to enable coaches to do their best work. And so it sounds like there are specific goals that the CEO has, and each coach helps him.
I think it's about a few things, Gabe. I would say it's about goals, but I also think it's also about handling the day-to-day, the strategy, communication, the soft skills, the hard skills. You know, looking, if we're looking at executive coaching, looking at the big picture, which we always talk about, is finance, what's the bottom line here, where are we at, what's the strategic plan, how do we measure success, you know, and where do we want to go? So I think it's, you know, it's a puzzle.
Well, the one last question is, I've asked you a few questions here, and I've really enjoyed getting to hear from your experiences and your perspective on everything. Are there any questions or things that you'd like to know more about me?
What do you want to do next?
That is a very good question indeed. And I think for one of the first times of my life, I really do not know. I do not know what I want to do next. You know, I'm 31 here, shifting my career from a focus on running an advertising agency into something else. And I think what I immediately want to do next is just to take some time off from full-time work once things with the agency wind down, and to read, to pursue this project, to write essays, to learn more about the evolution of capitalism, and just go back to this place in school where I'm being inspired and researching and learning and just taking in things from the world, to try to figure out what might be interesting to pursue next. So that's where I'm at currently.
Nice.
And I'll let you know as soon as I find out, as well as everyone who may be listening to and reading along with people just like you. Awesome. So Eli, thank you so much for joining us and being our first guinea pig here. This was really nice.
Thanks, Gabe. Always fun to talk with you.